You can't be a cisgender man who identifies as a woman. You would just be a trans woman. Are you forgetting earlier portions of this conversation? We've addressed this exact question.
If like a baby said they were like a helicopter or something, like you kind of feel it'd be just as valid, right?
So, if there's one thing I really dislike with conversations like this, it's when you don't learn lessons from previous answers. See, this is
Yeah,
what I mean.
you said you would agree with them.
Wait, please. This is what I mean, because we're running in circles now.
Hello?
Hello. How you doing?
Hey, doing good.
Yeah, so you emailed me with a disagreement. I don't remember what it was about. Hit me up.
Yeah, like you really seem bought into this whole self-ID view of gender and how just identifying as a woman or identifying as a man makes you trans. I guess I just had some disagreements with that. And I kind of wanted to hear your thought process through that.
Yeah, certainly. Hit me up. What do you disagree with?
Well, I guess to kind of talk about the things we do agree with, I do believe that gender and sex are separate, but they are related. And, you know, when people are born, they're assigned a gender at birth, right?
Yes.
Can we both agree on that?
Right. I guess we extrapolate one based on the observable sex of a baby, yeah.
And so once we're assigned that gender at birth, we can either stick with that gender, making somebody cisgender, or we can transition into a transgender role.
Yes.
Right? Okay. We can also see a transgender woman is a lot like a woman, right?
Well, I don't know what it means to be like a woman, to be honest.
Okay, then let's talk about like transgender men. Like a transgender man looks a lot more like a man than, let's say, a cisgender woman, right?
Yeah, if they dress the right way and, you know, take hormones or sometimes, you know, get work done, then they can certainly. I mean, there are plenty of trans women who pass, right, as cis women, and likewise for trans men. So there are, you know, in an aesthetic sense, there are definitely people who cross that boundary pretty effectively, I'd say.
Like objectively, like a cisgender male could not objectively be a woman, right?
Well, I mean, those would be two contrary terms.
But a transgender woman could be a woman because she adheres more to the social characteristics we all tend to share in our culture, right? Since we do live in a society and interact with people on a daily basis, like
she
no man
would
on
be
an
a
island,
woman,
right?
whether or not she did anything,
She would be.
changed anything about her behavior. If you refer to the self-ID model, then all she would have to do is say she's a woman, and that would be enough for me.
Like, why would that be enough if she has no desire to be a woman?
Well,
let's say it's a cisgender man who has no desire to be a transgender woman, but he just identifies as a woman.
Well, that would be the desire. If you identify as something, that's a conscious process that indicates a desire to identify as that thing. That would be the only marker I would need. I wouldn't really care if she wore, you know, feminine clothes or anything like that. It wouldn't really relate to my categorization there. You could say that she's not feminine, right? Like, if there's a trans woman who says that she's a woman but does nothing to transition, you could fairly argue that she's not feminine and doesn't look or act womanly, but it wouldn't really matter much to whether or not she is one of those things, because for anything that such a woman would be that deviates from our expectations of what a woman is, there are cis women who are like that too.
But doesn't that feel a little transphobic that you're saying a cisgender man with no desire to transition into a woman would be just as valid as a transgender woman who put in the work to be, let's say, not even traditionally like a super hyper conservative woman, let's say like more like a redneck woman, so she could still be masculine, but she wants to project herself as a woman? Why would that be just as valid
Because
as a cisgender man?
Well, if they're
who doesn't desire to transition?
Well, if they say that they identify as a woman, they're not a cisgender man. You mean a totally not transitioned trans woman, somebody who isn't doing any work to make themselves appear as or act as a woman. But the validity of the identifier woman, it's not a more than thing, right? Like, for instance, being tall and strong are masculine characteristics. They're associated with being a man. But I'm not more of a man than a guy who's shorter than me. Like, you could say I'm more masculine than them in that respect, but the whole what you identify as thing, it's modal. It's not really like a spectrum where one person can be literally more of a woman than another. They're both women. Maybe one's more feminine.
Wait, so like a cisgender man with no desire to transition, no dysphoria, like let's say Steven Crowder just says he's a woman as a joke. That's as valid to you as like Janet Mock, or like that's as valid to you as Laverne Cox or something? Like,
if you think
that doesn't make any sense.
If you think a person's being insincere, like, for instance, like I think there are lots of ways that we respect people when it comes to self-ID, like their names. If a person wants to change their name, you know, they don't need to prove anything to me. I'll call them by the name they want. But if I'm in school and said, like, I'm in high school or whatever, and some guy goes up to me and like, hey, my new name is Shit Dicks, so you have to call me Shit Dicks. Like, I don't think that I'm having my belief on recognizing and respecting other people's names being challenged when I don't do that with them. If a person's being transparently insincere, then like, okay, you can be rude to them on that basis. But if a person's being sincere and somebody's like, yeah, I'd like to, you know, I identify as a woman, but I'm not going to transition in any way, then yeah, they would be as much of a woman as any other woman. All women are equally a woman. They're not equally feminine, of course, or they're not equally passable.
Yeah, they're not, obviously they're not equally feminine. I mean, they're cisgender women who are not feminine that we still consider women,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, absolutely. Or like butch lesbians who sometimes get accused of being trans women and kicked out of bathrooms.
Yeah, so they're still the same gender, right? Even though they branch out in all these ways.
Yeah.
So like someone could transition to being a woman, like a butch woman, right? Like I said earlier.
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, if they would probably
Yeah, so
be
why are they
considered
just as
butch,
valid as someone like Steven Crowder?
Well, I don't think they're just as valid. Steven Crowder does this bit.
Well, he said
insincerely.
all women are women. And he said to be a woman is just to identify as a woman, right?
Yeah, but as I said, if a person's being transparently insincere with that or any element of their identity, I don't feel I have to be, you know, considerate towards it. But if they're being sincere, then sure, yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm just totally lost on this whole. Because I said a cisgender man with no desire to transition.
The cisgender?
So you think you could be sincere about being a woman with no desire to be a woman?
Well, wait.
Being a woman
is the
like,
cisgender is the cisgender man saying they identify as a woman?
Yeah, they're saying I'm a woman.
Then they're not
Let's
a
say you're at a
cisgender.
bar and there's a cisgender man. He's like, I'm a woman.
Then they're not a cisgender man. Then they'd be a trans woman.
Yeah, but like, what if it was like a redneck bar in like Alabama or something? And like,
I mean, whatever.
he's like, oh, look at me, I'm a woman.
Okay.
Don't I sound as crazy as like a radical lefty?
Well,
like you would believe him?
If they said like, I identify as a woman, or like, I mean, so are they like,
That's not what I'm saying. He said I am a woman.
Just so they're not like coming out to me. They're just saying I am a woman.
No, they're just saying it.
Oh,
they're just saying I'm a woman.
Well, I don't know their story. What if they're a trans woman who just hasn't had the ability to socially transition? They could be in the closet for all I know.
Well, if it's like I said, where I said they're a cisgender man with no desire to transition.
So what? So they're just saying I'm a woman, and they
they're just saying I'm a woman.
That would mean they identify as a woman because they just said I'm a woman. Or are you suggesting
when
they're
John
lying?
Travolta was in Hairspray and he was acting like a woman and being a woman, you believed he was actually a woman?
I'm afraid I didn't see Hairspray.
Well, let's say somebody in drag like RuPaul, he dresses up like a woman. He's like, oh, hey, girls.
But RuPaul doesn't claim to be a woman. RuPaul is doing a performance where femininity is the subject of the performance. RuPaul doesn't claim to be a woman.
Okay, how about when Lauren Southern got her gender changed to male on her license?
Oh, that'd be
she said, I'm literally a man.
Well, that'd be a legal designation. You know,
what is that?
Well, that'd be a legal designation. There are people whose legal gender doesn't overlap with their actual.
So when a trans woman transitions legally, that's not like really transitioning?
Well, what I consider to be whether or not you've crossed the threshold and become a woman or whatever is if you simply say you identify as one or indicate that that is what your gender is. You're expressing what you think of yourself to be. The legal identifier is it's the consideration of the state, you know. And if Lauren Southern were to go up to me and go like, haha, I'm a man now, actually, I probably wouldn't take it seriously because I don't trust her. She lies all the time on many issues. And I think she's just being insincere. But you know, if Lauren Southern...
so if a trans person came up to you and you didn't believe them, that's okay for you to misgender them?
If I felt a person was being insincere, then yeah, I don't think there's anything transphobic about marking people for insincerity. Like I said, if a person went up to me and was like, my name's shitfuck, actually, like, I don't think that it would be rude of me to go, okay, well, I'm not going to call you that.
Interesting.
Is it? I mean, this doesn't happen in the real world. What you're describing, what we're talking about is...
Well, I mean, I already brought up Steven Crowder identifying as a woman. I already brought up Lauren Southern
but the thing is,
as a man legally.
You might notice
what do you mean it doesn't happen in the real world?
That neither of those instances caused any confusion or trepidation in the trans community. There was no actual difficulty in navigating bad faith actors on the far right trying to make fun of trans people by flippantly identifying as them. In the real world, trans people are you know, going through a pretty rough time, and they consider their identity pretty important in most cases, and they usually act with a great deal of sincerity and care and consideration when they talk about stuff like this. If you want to like test this system by going, well, what if people acting in bad faith, then congratulations, every social construct is up on the table. I'll tell you, I feel the same way about race. I feel the same way about nationality and ethnicity. What does it mean, for instance, to be Italian or Irish? You know, nobody has 100% ethnic consistency going back far enough. If a person says they're Irish when in reality they're only 50%, 40, 33%, the God's honest truth is that I just don't care. We're talking about identifiers that are, you know, maybe they're important to them and other people, but what matters most to me, and I think most people, is that they just get some basic respect and get taken seriously, as long as they're not hurting people. When people tell us about what they are, or what they feel they are, or how they feel, we don't really call them on it, because it would be insane to in most cases. If a person described themselves to me and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to need qualifiers for all of your claims on this, that, the other. And not just qualifiers, but proof as well. Like, I need proof you were in Mexico for this length of time. I need proof that you have 6 items of black clothing or you can't call yourself a goth. We don't normally do that. We normally just go, oh, well, okay. And if you wanted to go later after understanding
Well,
that...
yeah, we don't normally do that, but if someone just says, I'm a goth, and they don't have any black stuff, and they don't listen to The Cure, like, what do you...
Well, you can't prove them
I
objectively
think it would
wrong.
be fair at that point to be like, wait, what makes you a goth? And like maybe they listen to Bauhaus on the side.
Sure. Well, hey, how about that? If a person
Like,
if a person tells you I'm a woman and you're having a conversation about gender identity and they don't seem to have done any transitioning, you can say, "Really? Well, what does that mean to you?" And maybe you'll get an interesting answer. Because if they are being sincere,
yeah,
they will have an
I would say
answer.
that because I would be kind of confused.
Oh.
And if they told me something like I do have a desire, then I would consider them a woman.
What if it's about their
But
internal
if
world?
they said I'm a cisgender man that has no desire to transition, then that statement is invalid, right?
Well,
They're just saying random words.
Well, yes, if they said I'm a cisgender man and I'm a woman, then that would just be a linguistic contradiction that would render what they're saying moot, or at least I
Yeah, so
wouldn't
there is a
understand.
difference between men and women, right?
I didn't say there wasn't a difference between men and women. So I think to a lot of people, you know, even if a person was just to say to me, you know, oh, I am a woman or I identify as a woman, and there wasn't anything external that indicated this, I would just assume that at least at the moment, whatever they've got going on in a gender sense is an internal process.
Huh. Interesting.
The way they think about themselves.
Because like that way you make it kind of sound like it's like if a baby said they were like a helicopter or something, like you kind of feel it'd be just as valid, right? Because like these words don't
No, because a
mean
helicopter
anything. That's kind of what I took away from your argument.
isn't a mode of social identification, and I don't think a baby knows what a helicopter is, so I don't think that could happen or be believed if it were said to be true.
Okay.
If you say you're a woman, that is identifying as a woman, like that's the definition of identifying as something, then they are as much of a woman.
Yeah, we
under a
can all
self-ID
identify as
model.
something, but just because we identify as something doesn't mean it's true, right?
Well, that's because most things that we might identify as aren't identifiers, the way that woman is. A helicopter is not an identifier. It's a type of military equipment, or I guess there are civilian helicopters. Whereas woman is an identifier. It's one of those things that you really can just say, I am X, and that can be an argument. I'm an introvert. Find me someone who can disprove that. I am, you know, I was about to say I'm a Virgo. I think you can disprove that. Not that it fucking matters. No, if you say I'm a woman, you identify as a woman, whatever, then that's the end of it to me. Now, if you want to say, is a person more valid in other identifiers? Well, you can ask whatever you want, but the self-ID model is remarkably simple, so my answer is not going to vary much.
Well, I guess it is simple because it's 1 + 1 = 4 is simple.
Can you objectively prove
makes sense, right?
Can you objectively
like,
prove?
could
Wait.
If someone was a party
Wait,
animal
no,
and
wait,
went to a party every single night
Hold
and
on.
hung out with new people.
I don't
Sorry,
think
I'm
you
asking
can.
a question,
No,
Vaush.
I know you are.
Someone
but
went to a party every single night and hung out with new people every single day and didn't get tired of it. And then they came to you and like, yeah, I'm actually an introvert. You would believe them?
So, if there's one thing I really dislike with conversations like this, it's when you don't learn lessons from previous answers. As we both agreed, you and I both, there's no objective answer to whether or not somebody is or is not a woman. There's no way, there's no objective reference.
Yeah, there isn't an objective answer,
so
but there
your
is
comparison,
an answer, right?
well, there are many answers, not an answer, singular. There are many. So your comparison
there's some
to
wrong answers, there's some
one
right answers.
Okay, can you prove then how somebody's definition of woman is wrong? How would you do so?
Yeah, like if a cisgender man with no desire to transition and wanted to use he, him pronouns, said, I am a man, that wouldn't be true, right?
Prove it.
I said no desire to transition. No desire.
Okay.
They just randomly say they're a woman.
You seem to think that identity and transitioning are the same. I don't know why you think that. You can't be a cisgender man who identifies as a woman. You would just be a trans woman. This is like
John Travolta is a cisgender man who identified as one in Hairspray, right?
No, that's called acting.
Tyler Perry is a cisgender man who identified as one in Medea, right?
So this is called acting. This is a different thing from identifying
It is acting.
as one.
Social constructs and gender and thing are all kind of like a gender performance, like Judith Butler said, right?
Yeah, but Judith Butler would conk you over the head for citing her here, because when she talked about gender as a performance, she didn't mean literal, actual acting as a job that you go into and act.
And do you think Judith Butler would believe that a cisgender man with no desire to transition could identify as a woman and be correct in being a transgender woman?
Judith Butler? Yes, absolutely. Are you kidding me?
You seem to believe someone like Steven Crowder could say, I'm a woman.
We've already answered this.
Unironically.
Are you forgetting earlier portions of this conversation? We've addressed this exact question. See, this is what I mean.
You said you
wait, please. This is what I mean, because we're running in circles now. You acknowledge there's no objective way to prove or disprove the metrics by which one is a woman, but then you talk about helicopters and 1 + 1 = 4. You cite Judith Butler and repeatedly cite existing trans women as though there's some kind of looming specter of cancellation that'll get me to change my answer, or a clip you're trying to bait out.
Well, no, I'm just trying to bring up real examples because you're kind of vague in all your answers.
Yes, it's interesting that
bringing up real people who really matter, who are really fighting for their lives right now.
It's interesting you're concerned with real examples when the subject that you're interested in is meaningless and affects nobody. If a person who looks like me...
Why is a cisgender man with no desire?
It's not a cisgender. It's not a cisgender male. No. You don't understand the terms that you're using. If a person goes to a healthcare clinic and who looks like me and says, "I'm a woman, I would like bottom surgery," you realize that is both an element of social transition and an expression of interest in medical transition, right? So at that point, they already would have met the criteria that you think my people don't meet.
Are we talking about a cisgender man who went in for
We're not talking about anything. The thing you're talking about isn't real and doesn't exist. You're talking about a made-up group of people
who would...
trans. No, this isn't real. This isn't real. It's not real. This group, you already admitted this is nonsense. This doesn't happen. This group of people doesn't exist. You're obsessing over them because you're trying to find a wedge argument against a system that works for everybody and hurts nobody.
Well, I think it harms the trans movement, because then
why do
Republican lawmakers can look at these at this self-ID and be like, see, they think a cisgender man with no desire is just as equal as a woman.
So what do you mean, just as equal? Men and women are equal.
That is a material harm, right?
Wait.
They are passing these bills.
What do you mean?
And they are hurting the community.
What do you mean?
And they are against these drag shit.
What do you mean?
There is a material harm to not knowing what these words mean.
What do you mean a cisgender man is equal to a woman? They are. What do you mean?
In my example, it was a cisgender man with no desire to transition, said they were a woman. And you said, so you would believe them.
I'm gonna do this one more time, okay? And it's gonna be the last time you get to say that, because it makes me feel like you're not taking the argument seriously. I can tell you're smiling when you talk. I can hear the way your corners of your lips are turned. But we'll try this one more time because I know you like the attention, right? There's no such thing as a cis man who identifies as a woman. You are categorically describing a trans woman. If you say cis man
when John
again...
Travolta identified as a woman in Hairspray, that he was a woman.
There it is. All right, that's it.
Well, I think black people deserve equal rights because I don't even think black people are human. And I don't think any of us are human.
What are we on?
So I think we're all like lower than dirt.
What are you talking about?
I'm not lost. Like I feel like you are lost. That's the problem.